Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars, welcome to another PlayStation review. Today's review is for Matchpoint Tennis Championships, and many thanks to Calypso Media for providing me with a review copy for this game. Now, Matchpoint Tennis Championships is exactly what it looks like. It's a tennis game, and for those of you who are into tennis, who enjoy tennis, and which is quite timely at the minute, certainly in the UK, because it is the Wimbledon Championships. This might be a game of interest for you. Now, I've always been a bit of a fan of tennis games over the years. I have played a lot of them over the years. There hasn't in the past been a huge amount of tennis games on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. But in the last couple of years, there's been a few more that have been coming out. So we have been spoilt to some degree in the last couple of years for tennis games. And where does Matchpoint stand up in regards to the rest? Well, what we've got here is, at the face value of it, a fairly basic tennis game. It does everything that you want a tennis game to do. When you first turn the game on, you are introduced to the game kind of through a tutorial first. It kind of goes through the basic shots. It's actually quite good to get to grips with the game. It shows you how to do the serves, all the different shots that you've got. You've got your flat shot, your lob, your backhand, all this kind of stuff, and all the serving and things like that. So it's a pretty good tutorial to get you going, and then you'll go into like the main menu, and what you've got here is you've got two sections of the game. You've got like the local section, which consists really of, you've got the career part of the game, which is for most people going to be where you're going to be spending most of your time, I suspect. Then there's a quick match option, there's a practice option, there's a tutorial you can go and do again, or there's training as well for you to get used to doing more shots in the training mode. But then also you've got an online section of the mode. Now, obviously, with me getting my hands on this before it's actually been released, I've had this for a couple of days prior to release. I haven't been able to play much in the way of any of the online games, but I'm sure it's going to be up and running and fine for any of you out there that like to play online with people. And you can do things like ranked match, casual matches, and invite a friend type matches in the online part of the mode. Now, I've spent the bulk of my time in this game doing the career mode. That's generally where I like to spend my time on most sports games, and tennis games are no exception. So when you go into the career section of the game, you can customize your character, a male, female character, and then you get to choose. It's quite a basic customization. You can choose for a few different faces, a few different hairstyles, but you can't really do facial hair, things like that. You can't really add much in the way of changing the shape of the face and all that kind of stuff. It's quite basic stuff. Then you can customize the top and the shorts that you wear and change the colors of them. And then you kind of thrust into the game. And the game in the career mode is very much, if you've played tennis games in the past, very similar to what you're used to. It's like a calendar. And it starts off, you can either join the tournament. At the beginning, you can only do low-ranking tournaments because I think you're ranked something like 275th in the world, something like that. So you can only do the really low-ranking tournaments to start with, and to be honest, quite early on, it's quite difficult to get to grips with, as it should be. There should be a fairly solid learning curve on tennis games, I find. If they're too easy, too early, you get bored very, very quickly. And there are three difficulty levels you can choose for in this game. You've got amateur, semi-pro, and then professional, something like that anyway. I went in on like the normal difficulty, and I found the learning curve to actually be pretty rewarding. It's not actually too bad at all. Now, the first 2 or 3 matches that I played, I lost. But, I held my own. I won a few games, sort of thing. It wasn't as if I was getting whitewashed. But I quite like tennis games, and I have played a few in the past, like I've said, so I'm quite familiar with the controls for games like this. And then as you go on, you can kind of skip events and do training, which will up your skills. So you can do like training on your serves, your volleys, your backhands, all this kind of stuff, and then it will up the attributes in those areas. But you can't literally go into your player and physically upgrade your stats yourself. It kind of does it automatically for you. You've also got like a coach, and as you progress through the game and you get better and you start moving up the ranks and winning tournaments, you unlock better coaches so that you can kind of choose the coach that you want to do, and they will upgrade certain stats faster than other coaches. For example, some coaches will specialize in serving and volleying. Other coaches will specialize in backhands and forehands and things like that. So it just depends what type of tennis player you want to be. Do you want to be a hard-hitting, fast server? Do you want to be a volleyer? Do you want to be focusing on the back of the net or further down towards the net? It really does depend on what kind of tennis player you want to be. And this game allows you to kind of do any of that, really. Now, in regards to getting to grips with the controls, I actually found them quite easy to pick up and play and learn. But like I say, I have played tennis games quite a lot in the past. The serving I found to be particularly effective. I was serving serves very, very quickly, if I'm being particularly honest. But depending on the skill level of the player that you're playing against, it doesn't always work. So, like I say, in Korea, you've got like you can go in an exhibition match. You can go, which will kind of reward you with certain things if you do well in the exhibition match. You've got lower ranking tournaments. You've got your higher ranking tournaments that you can only enter as you climb the ranks. And then you've got, like I say, these training events and things like that. And obviously, as you get better and you start winning tournaments, you will unlock new equipment, new tennis rackets, new trainers, new clothing options, all this kind of stuff. It's exactly how you would imagine it to be. But it is quite a decent career mode, I think, anyway. It's fairly basic, but sometimes they can get overly complicated, I think, these things. In regards to how the game looks, well, to be honest, I think some of the character models look pretty poor. In regards to this is a PS5 version of the game that I am playing. I thought the graphics really aren't really what I would describe as next gen or anything like that. They are functional to do the job. You don't exactly expect them to be the best graphics in the world for a tennis game. They do the job, but that's about it really. But I do think some of the character models were a little bit poor. In regards to the sounds then in the game, well, what can you expect with that? Well, it's got some fairly basic menu music, all that kind of stuff. It's got some fairly basic commentary, and you only really get commentary when something special happens. If you break someone's serve, or there's a big rally goes on, all that kind of stuff, or if you win a major match, win a set, so on and so forth. There's very little in the way of commentary, and it's the same person every time. I certainly think it is anyway. Other than that, you've got like the umpires calling out the shots and the calls, all that kind of stuff, and that's it really. There's no real top class sponsorships in the game like that. I mean, you will recognise some of the products in the game, like the tennis rackets and sports equipment and things like that. But what I mean is like the tennis tournaments. They're not actually like the official tennis tournaments. You know, for example, that it's Wimbledon because, you know, it'll tell you, I can't remember what it is, whether it's like London tournament or something like that. Same with Australia, but they don't give them their official titles. But I don't necessarily think you need to either in a game like this. Also, as well, that I found really quite good in the game is that there's a strength and weakness system, which I think is really quite good. So by playing your opponent, you will discover their strengths and weaknesses, and you can use that to your advantage. However, you also have got your own strengths and weaknesses, and they can play to your advantage. So you might be playing someone, you might lob the player, and then you will learn that in actual fact, lobs are their weakness. They might not be very good at if you do like lobs at them. They might not be good under pressure, like when you've got a chance of breaking their serve and all this kind of stuff. So you can use all this to your advantage in matches, but just bear in mind you've got weaknesses as well that can be used against you. So the game itself is pretty good. If you're like a good, fairly basic tennis game, the roster on display here is nothing to write home about. There's a few names that you'll recognise. But again, nothing particularly special. You've got Tim Henman, people like that in the game. But other than that, the roster is not anything that worth writing home about. If this is what you're coming into a tennis game for an official roster, of all the top tennis stars out there. You're probably going to be disappointed with that because there isn't really much to speak of in that sense. But for a fairly basic tennis game, this kind of does everything it says on the tin. I do think it's a little bit overpriced. I think to buy the basic version of the game, it's about £42-43 in the UK. If you want to buy like a deluxe version of the game where you get a few more known tennis stars, you pay an extra couple of quid and you'll get that as well. It just really depends on you. How much do you like tennis? How much do you like tennis games? Is this the best tennis game I've played on the PlayStation? Probably not, but it's fairly functional and quite enjoyable. So if you're looking to pick up a new tennis game just in time for the Wimbledon finals this weekend, you could do far worse than this one. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. It's certainly worth picking up, maybe a little bit overpriced for the rest of you. You might want to wait for a sale on this one. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this review. I will be back with more content on the channel very, very soon.